Multivitamins talk a good game, but Centrum Silver is a specially age-adjusted multivitamin with high levels of B vitamins, which emerging science suggests may help reduce the risk of vascular diseases, including heart disease, and with calcium to help maintain healthy blood pressure.
I can't wait for my next gig.
My next plunge.
Centrum Silver, adjusted for your age and your life.
Call today and get your next notebook from Dell, home of America's favorite notebooks. This Inspiron B120 with an Intel Celeron M processor, free wireless card, and free memory upgrade can be yours for only $499 after mail-in rebate. It's more than just a notebook. It's a Dell.
Back on lobbying. Never mind about the photographs, but can you say whether...
It's easy for a radio guy to say.
Actually, that was one of the several questions, but about the funniest answer about photos of President Bush and disgraced lobbyist Jack Abramoff at today's White House press conference. Now, President Bush pointed out, because these guys kept asking about pictures taken with the president and Abramoff, but the president pointed out that he takes photos with lots of people. People like, these are standard White House procedures at Christmas parties and receptions. Let me tell you, I go to these Christmas parties when as a congressman, go now as somebody in the media, and I can tell you, most of those guys in the room asking questions, they got their pictures taken with the president too, probably 3 or 4 times. What a joke, they're schmoes. That's all the time we have for tonight. The situation with Tucker Carlson starts right now. Hey, Tucker, what's the situation?
Joe, schmo, underused word. I'm going to make a point of using that word at least twice in this show. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to you at home for sticking with us tonight. We appreciate it, as we always do. Tonight, James Frey gets ripped into a million little pieces by a furious Oprah Winfrey. Why did the queen of daytime do an about-face? What will happen to the disgraced author? And should duped readers of the lie-filled book be compensated for their wasted time? We'll answer all of those questions over the next hour. And then Mexico has suspended plans to give maps to illegal aliens trying to sneak into this country. That has not stopped one American group from doing exactly the same thing. We'll talk to the founder of Humane Borders about his organization's controversial mission. Plus, are boys discriminated against in the classroom? A new lawsuit filed by a Massachusetts high school student says, oh yeah, girls get all the breaks when it comes to getting good grades. We'll ask him about it in just a few moments. But we start tonight with Oprah Winfrey's thrashing, her spanking of Million Little Pieces author James Frey on national television this afternoon. If you remember, Frey's best-selling memoir was shredded by the SmokingGun.com website for being filled with exaggeration and inaccuracies. At first, Oprah defended the book, facts be damned. Now she's changed her mind. Take a look at part of the exchange today with Frey.
First of all, I wanted to start with the Smoking Gun report, titled The Man Who Conned Oprah. And I want to know where they write.
I think most of what they wrote was pretty accurate, absolutely.
What they said was that you lied about the length of time that you spent in jail. How long were you in jail?
I was in jail for, they were right about that. I was in for a few hours, not the time.
Not 87 days. Let's get back to Lily. Was your description of how she died true?
She committed suicide, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She hung herself.
I mean, that was one of the details I altered about her. I mean...
Ouch! Joining me now to discuss Oprah's dressing down of James Frey, a man who has himself slammed the Million Little Pieces author. Richard Roeper is the media critic for the Chicago Sun-Times. He's also the host of Ebert and Roeper. He joins us from Chicago tonight. Richard Roeper, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, Tucker, I guess the first announcement we have to make is that the book's been retitled 12 Big Pieces, turns out. The other 999,000 pieces were a bunch of bull.
At least that many. Why? This guy got so spanked on Oprah, so humiliated, you have to think she was blackmailing the publisher or promising to boycott, everything that Penguin publishes from now on. Why would this guy come on?
Well, I think he was in a situation where, you know, he thought he had gotten away with this because he goes on Larry King, you know, a month or so ago, and Oprah calls in and all is well and good. And then Oprah sees all the criticism coming in. I'll give Oprah credit. You know, I've criticized her a lot over the years, but she looked right into the camera today. She said she was sorry, and then she brought that guy out. And I think, what was he going to do? Either he doesn't go on and she says, hey, he's not even here, and then she spends an hour ripping him, or he tries to come clean, although I think he did a terrible job. He just kept backpedaling and dodging, and she, you know, he'd say, well, you know, here's the situation, and she'd say, you mean the lie?
I love that. I'm not a huge Oprah fan myself, but I was impressed by that, except one thing stuck with me, though, and that is Oprah called Larry King 2 weeks ago at the end of the show where Fry was on with his mom, and defended him. That was after this devastating smoking gun piece came out. How could anybody who actually read that smoking gun investigation still defend James Fry?
Well, I think Oprah was in one of those situations where, first of all, she's surrounded by people who worship her. She's used to being always right. I think she was personally offended that this guy was under attack. She was hearing from all these people saying, hey, this book changed my life. It doesn't matter if the small details weren't true. And I think she, you know, as she said on the show today, she regrets making that call. She wished she hadn't have done it. Once she got all the information, I mean, you know, again, what is she supposed to do? Either continue to defend this liar or at least come clean and say, you know what, I made a mistake. I made a huge mistake. This guy conned me, and he conned millions of readers as well.
You're right. She was pretty straightforward, I thought, except at the end. She let Fry get away with something that infuriated me. He said at the end, thank you, Oprah. I'm going to be a better person from now on. I've learned my lesson, and in everything else I write, I will keep that lesson in mind. It was an indication that this guy's not going away.
Well, of course he's not. Tucker, you know what his next book? His next book is going to be about going on Oprah without taking painkillers. That's way more harrowing than a couple of root canals. Of course, he's going to write another book about he'll probably get addicted to something again. God forbid. I hope that doesn't happen. He'll be able to write about that. He'll be able to write about his pathological lying problem and this whole process. And you know what? He'll be back on with Oprah or somebody else in 2 years. You know, How I Learned a Million Little Lessons by James Fry.
But we have got to stop this vicious cycle. I mean, shouldn't there be a cooling off period? Shouldn't James Fry have to move to Omaha for 20 years and manage a Hardee's before he comes back into the public eye?
Yeah, but if he was managing the Hardee's, he'd tell everybody, you know, I own Hardee's. In fact, my last name is Hardy. Why would you do that to the good people of Omaha? I mean, I think, you know, I'm a journalist. You've been in the business for a long time. I mean, the only thing we really have is our credibility.
Yes.
And I think, you know, all kidding aside, this guy has used up all of his credibility as an author. Anything he writes from now on, unless he wants to go ahead and write a novel like Stephen Glass did after he got busted for making up stuff, unless he wants to just say it's fiction, how would anybody, if anybody buys any of his books now, they deserve to get conned.
Do you think people will? I mean, obviously people shouldn't, but as a pure kind of financial, cultural observation, do you think this guy is going to sell any books after today?
Yeah, I think he will. I think it's, you know, it's almost the same kind of effect you see whenever a pop artist dies and people go out and buy the album or they go out and rent the movies. All of a sudden there's some sort of curiosity factor, that train wreck factor. I think right now, you know, that second book that Fry did about this supposed mobster in Chicago, you know, his friend, it's kind of interesting that almost all of his characters in his books, these nonfiction books, are conveniently dead. But I think, yeah, I think if you look at the bestseller list this week, you'll see a spike in his sales instead of a drop.
Just for ghoul, it's like John Wayne Gacy's prison paintings. There's just kind of a ghoulish quality to it.
Yeah, yeah. Pogo the Clown, those lovely
things. Finally, does this...
Thanks for bringing up all the great things. That's another Chicago connection.
Well, I've been thinking about Chicago all day long, and of course, John Wayne Gacy came immediately to mind. Does this hurt Oprah in the end, or does it help her?
Well, first of all, Oprah's untouchable. You know, here in Chicago, the show was aired live, and at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central, they actually had to break away to go to George Bush's press conference. That's the first time in history they went from the most popular person in the world to the second most powerful person in the world. So, no, it's not going to hurt Oprah. And actually, she did, you know, she did the right thing. She came clean. She'll have other books to recommend. She'll have other shows she'll do. I'm sure some of her audience members were walking out today saying, I thought we were going to get a free Pontiac. What was this all about? But as far as Oprah's reputation, Teflon, totally Teflon.
You know, the words stick in my throat, but I agree with you. Richard Roeper, the Chicago Sun-Times. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Anytime.
It's no secret that millions of readers are annoyed by James Fry's Million Little Lies. Now, one man has decided to profit from that anger. Seattle attorney Mike Myers has filed a lawsuit seeking damages on behalf of consumers for the lost time they spent reading A Million Little Pieces. It seeks action against Fry and the book's publisher, Random House. With Oprah Winfrey suddenly saying she was duped, will it help his case? We'll ask him. Mike Myers joins us live tonight from Seattle, Washington. Mr. Myers, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.
So I understand why people are annoyed by the fact this book turns out to be untrue. Why do they deserve money?
Well, I think Oprah's telecast today speaks volumes. Mr. Fry said during the show that he lied, and he lied to sell books.
Oh, come on. Everybody lies to sell books. There is not a single self-help book written that's not just chock full of lies.
I disagree with that, but I think we're talking about this specific book, A Million Little Pieces.
Right.
And it's quite clear from what he had to say today that he and the truth are strangers and that he profited because of it. The same thing's true of Random House.
But, okay, how does that, I mean, there's no question that you're strictly speaking right. He lied. The book was sold under false pretenses. How does that damage, harm, hurt the book buyers?
Well, in two distinct ways. One, the purchase price. Two, the value of the time they spent reading the book.
Okay, so because the book is untrue, the time they spent reading it is wasted? What if they were entertained? I mean, you could be entertained by things that aren't true. You can be entertained by things that are fooling you. Why is it a waste of time to read something just because it's a crock?
Well, I think Oprah explained it well when she said she felt betrayed, that she generated a set of emotions while she was reading the book. It had what she thought to be a significant effect on her, and then she found out that those emotions were based on false pretenses.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
Falsehoods.
Look, I completely get that. I guess the part that leaves me confused is the notion that we, the duped, deserve money. I mean, you can think of all the things you spend your life doing that are a waste of time. Waiting in line at the post office, sitting in traffic. Do you get to sue the Department of Transportation? Do you get to sue IKEA because it takes longer than you expected to put together a couch? I mean, there's a lot of wasted time in this world, and it doesn't mean that we should get a payday because of it, does it?
Well, let's talk about the Department of Transportation. I don't think
that was a joke, by the way. I'm not suggesting you sue them.
I appreciate that. I don't think the Department of Transportation lures you onto the freeway with promises that you won't encounter traffic.
No, but
here,
but hold on. But AM radio tells you, it's fine on the Cross Bronx Expressway, and you get to the Cross Bronx Expressway, and there's an accident. You don't sue, AM 1010 or whatever, do you? No.
But that's a little bit different because it's prospective, it's forward-looking, whereas this, Mr. Fry had every opportunity and was in fact given multiple opportunities to tell the truth, and he hasn't told the truth. In fact, I was extremely disappointed that he wasn't contrite today on Oprah.
No, the guy's a creep. I mean, I'm not defending James Fry. How do you determine whether someone has actually read the book? I mean, if your suit goes forward, and there's no guarantee it will, but let's say it does, how can people prove that they actually read the book before the SmokingGun.com piece came out?
Well, that's certainly a question that the court's going to have to address. Fortunately, we have a very well-informed judiciary here in the Western District of Washington, and that's one of the questions that the court's going to have to resolve.
Okay, finally, I've got 3 or 4 producers who did read the book before the rest of us learned it was false. How much is each one due?
Depends if they'd be included in our putative class.
Well, let's just say someone from Seattle who read the book, wasted his or her time. How much money does that person get, and how much do you get per book?
Again, that's an issue for the court to decide. I'd say at a very minimum, it would be the number of hours they spent reading the book multiplied by the value of their time. And there comes the real issue, calculating the value of their time. It's still open whether in this case that's going to be done on a person-by-person basis, whether various subclasses are going to be set up, or whether one value is going to be ascribed to all the persons in the class.
Amazing. Amazing. Such is the life of a lawyer, figuring out formulas like that. We are out of time. Speaking of it, Mike Myers, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Still to come, we'll have more on discredited author James Fry now that Oprah has pounced on him like a tiger. Where does he go from here? Also, do girls get preferential treatment in the classroom? So says a 17-year-old Doug Anglin of Milton, Massachusetts. He's a high school kid. He's filed a lawsuit saying boys are being discriminated against. You're going to meet him in just a moment. We'll be right back.
The next time you put your company's money into software, choose the software that's most likely to return the favor. SAP.